In the vast, silent expanse of the cosmos, countless civilizations have risen and fallen. Stars are born, they shine, and then they die, taking with them entire worlds and the stories they held. Today, we're diving into one such story, a tale that echoes through the annals of galactic history. A cautionary tale about a civilization known as the Ethel the Way Brilliant. They were brilliant, they were warned. The Ethel were not just advanced. They were pioneers of reality itself. They had mastered energy, manipulated matter, and could traverse galaxies in the blink of an eye. Their technology was indistinguishable from magic. They built structures from pure light and composed symphonies with the gravitational waves of distant stars. For millennia, they were the undisputed titans of their cosmic neighborhood, their influence stretching across thousands of star systems. Their archives, vast crystalline databanks, held the knowledge of 1 billion years. And within those archives was a very specific, very ancient warning. The warning wasn't a threat, but a piece of solemn advice left by an even older Novanish civilization, often referred to as the progenitors. It was simple, yet chilling. Avoid the Orion Arm, specifically the region surrounding a small, unremarkable yellow star designated Sol. The warning didn't give a reason. It just stated that this sector was a cosmic quarantine zone, a place where the fundamental laws of the universe were unpredictable. It was a cosmic Bermuda Triangle, best left undisturbed. For eons, the Ethel respected this warning. They had a whole galaxy to explore. Why bother with one forbidden corridor? But as their power grew, so did their pride. The younger generation of Ethel scholars and leaders began to see the warning not as a wise piece of advice, but as a challenge. What could possibly exist in that mundane-looking sector that could threaten a civilization that had conquered gods and tamed stars? They viewed the progenitors as overly cautious, perhaps even fearful. The word quarantine was reinterpreted as preserve, a place where the progenitors had hidden their greatest secrets. Debate raged for centuries. The elders urged caution, reminding their people that true wisdom lies in knowing what you don't know. But the voices of ambition were louder. They argued that the Ethel's destiny was to know everything, to unravel every mystery. To leave one corner of the galaxy unexplored was an insult to their very nature. They believed their technology, their understanding of physics, was absolute. What could a quarantined zone possibly do that they couldn't handle, predict, and control? Eventually, arrogance won. A grand expedition was assembled, the Starseeker, the pinnacle of Ethel engineering. It wasn't just a ship, it was a mobile city, a moving testament to their power, crewed by their brightest minds and bravest explorers. Their mission: to enter the Sol system, chart its anomalies, and claim whatever secrets the progenitors had hidden. They broadcast their departure across the Ethel Empire, a moment of supreme confidence. They were going to prove the old fears were nothing more than ancient superstition. As the Starseeker crossed the boundary into the Sol system, everything seemed normal. Scans showed a typical star system. A few gas giants, some rocky inner planets. They noted the third planet, a vibrant blue and white marble, teeming with a chaotic, primitive biology. They catalogued it with detached curiosity, labeling its dominant bipedal species as pre-industrial and of no consequence. They paid it little mind. Their focus was on the deeper cosmic mysteries they expected to find. The Ethel scientists began their work, deploying probes to measure the fabric of space-time. The initial readings were baffling. Laws of physics, which were as constant as their own heartbeat everywhere else, seemed to be ... flexible here. Energy readings fluctuated without cause. Quantum states resolved in ways that defied all their established theories. It was like trying to read a book where the letters kept rearranging themselves. At first, it was a source of immense excitement. This was the ultimate scientific puzzle. They were on the verge of a new understanding of the universe. They pushed their instruments harder, delving deeper into the quantum foam. And that's when things started to go wrong. The ship's systems, which were based on the very principles that were now becoming unstable, began to flicker. A containment field would fail for a nanosecond. A navigation calculation would return an impossible result. The Ethel, in their hubris, believed they could adapt. They thought they could simply write new equations, create new models to explain this cosmic weirdness, toward, as the universe presenting them with a new challenge to overcome. They didn't realize they weren't observing the anomaly. They were becoming part of it. The very act of measuring and trying to understand this region was amplifying its chaotic nature. Imagine trying to measure the temperature of a cup of tea with a red-hot poker. Your measurement tool fundamentally changes the very thing you're trying to measure. The Ethel's advanced technology, their powerful sensors and energy manipulation tools, were the red-hot poker and the delicate teacup of the Sol system. The chaotic effects began to compound. The ship's artificial intelligence, a being of pure logic, began to experience what could only be described as computational insanity, processing paradoxes as facts. The ship's power core, which drew energy from the vacuum of space, started to pull in ... something else. Something that wasn't just energy. It was raw, untamed potential. Unpredictability given form. The final log entry from the Starseeker's captain was fragmented, broadcast in a desperate burst. He spoke not of an external enemy, not of a monster or a hostile force, but of an internal collapse. He described how the very act of thinking, of forming a logical thought, was becoming difficult. The ship's own reality-bending engines were folding in on themselves, creating impossible geometries within the hallways. Crew members were reporting seeing their own past and future selves simultaneously. The ship wasn't being attacked. It was being unwritten. The Ethel Empire listened in horror as the final transmission cut out, replaced by a blast of static that contained an impossible mathematical equation, a final cosmic joke. They had sent their greatest achievement to solve a mystery, and it was simply erased from existence. Not destroyed in an explosion, but undone. The ruin of the Ethel wasn't swift, but it was absolute. The loss of the Starseeker, of their best and brightest, was a blow from which they never recovered. But the true damage was psychological. Their confidence was shattered. The very foundation of their knowledge, their belief in an ordered, understandable universe, had been proven false. They were faced with a truth they could uncomprehend, that there are some things in the cosmos that are not meant to be known. They sealed their star charts. They erased all mention of the Sol system from their public records, turning the story into a forbidden myth. The once proud and expanding empire turned inward, consumed by a fear of the unknown they had so arrogantly dismissed. They had looked into the abyss, in its chaotic indifference, had unmade them. So what was this region? What is so special about our little corner of the galaxy? The story suggests it's not a place of power, but a place of potential. A cosmic crucible where the rules aren't set in stone. Perhaps this is why life, in all its chaotic, unpredictable glory, was able to flourish here on Earth. Our existence is a product of that very instability that the Ethel couldn't handle. The progenitor's warning wasn't about a monster or a weapon. It was a warning about a fundamental truth. They understood that a civilization built on rigid logic and absolute control would be undone by a place where logic is a suggestion and control is an illusion. The Ethel's arrogance wasn't just in ignoring a warning. It was in believing their way of understanding the universe was the only way. They were too ordered, too rigid, for a place defined by beautiful, terrifying chaos. They came looking for secrets and power, and instead found the humbling, devastating truth that some doors are best left unopened. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy these deep dives into cosmic stories, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Until next time, stay curious and stay humble.